My heart sank when I discovered that my wife had been unfaithful. But what made it even worse was that it wasn't a physical affair, but an emotional one that started online. My wife cheats on me, and the pain of betrayal cuts deep into my soul. Let me share with you the heartbreaking story of my wife's online betrayal. It began as a harmless pastime, the kind of thing almost everyone does without a second thought. She was spending more time on her phone, absorbed in the glow of the screen, her fingers dancing across the keyboard with a familiarity and ease that spoke of a world I was only peripherally aware of. Online chatting, a modern way to connect, to share, and to be understood. It was innocent, or so it seemed at the time. She found joy in it, a sort of solace in the company of strangers turned friends through pixels and text messages. I noticed the subtle shift, the way her eyes would light up with each notification, the eagerness in her voice when she talked about the conversations she had, the people she met. It was a digital friendship, a connection fostered in the vastness of the internet. Yet, there was an undercurrent of change, a movement away from the tangible reality of our lives together towards something intangible but alarmingly compelling. I didn't see it then, the beginning of something that would redefine the boundaries of our relationship, of trust, and of fidelity. The chats were just chats, I told myself, a way for her to unwind and engage with interests and conversations outside of the routine of our lives. There was no harm in it, no reason for concern. But in that digital exchange, something profound and unsettling was taking root. It was the beginning of an emotional journey that would lead us down a path I never imagined we would tread. A path that started with innocent messages on a screen but would end in a place far removed from where we began. Gradually, the woman I thought I knew began to morph into someone unfamiliar. There was a detachment in her demeanor, a certain withdrawal from the life we shared. Our conversations, once filled with laughter and shared secrets, had dwindled to practical exchanges about mundane aspects of our daily routine. She was physically present, yet emotionally miles away, often lost in thought or absorbed in her phone. I recall evenings spent side by side, where the silence between us grew thick with unspoken thoughts, her attention riveted to that glowing screen as if it held the answers she sought. The laughter that once echoed through our home became a rare sound, replaced by the soft taps of her typing. Meals were consumed with minimal interaction, her gaze drifting to her phone, a faint smile playing on her lips with every message received. This digital intrusion had wedged itself between us, slowly eroding the intimacy we once cherished. Her hobbies and interests, things we once shared and enjoyed together, were now overshadowed by her online engagements. It was as if she was living a parallel life, one where I no longer had a place. Her excitement for life, which used to light up her eyes, seemed to only ignite when she was sharing moments with this unseen online world. I couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider in my own marriage, observing the transformation of my wife from the wings. The realization that I was losing her, not to someone else, but to an online persona, was a bitter pill to swallow. It was this slow, creeping change in her, the drift towards someone who shared her digital laugh and understood her online whispers, that signaled the beginning of the end for us. The moment my wife mentioned him, something shifted inside me. She talked about this man, someone she had met in the digital cosmos, with a sparkle in her eyes I hadn't seen for a long time. It stung, the realization that he had reached a part of her soul I thought was reserved just for me. They had stumbled upon each other in a forum, bonding over a shared passion that had faded between us over the years. It was as if he had unlocked a version of her that I no longer recognized, one that laughed more freely and dreamt out loud. His name became a regular part of our conversations, and with each mention, I felt my place in her heart being subtly eroded by someone who had never physically entered our lives. She would share anecdotes of their conversations, each story a testament to their growing connection, their shared laughter echoing in our home, leaving me feeling more isolated than ever. I couldn't comprehend how someone sitting behind a screen, miles away, could understand my wife better than I did, her husband, her partner in life. It was a digital intrusion that felt deeply personal, a silent competitor I had never anticipated. Their relationship, fostered through late-night chats and shared secrets, was a vivid illustration of the emotional distance that had crept between us, a gap I had failed to bridge. As she spoke of him with admiration, I grappled with a mix of emotions, jealousy, inadequacy, and a creeping sense of loss. It was clear he provided her with a form of understanding and acceptance I hadn't realized she was missing. This man, a stranger to me but a confidant to her, had inadvertently highlighted the voids in our marriage, underscoring a painful truth. She had found in him what she felt was lacking in us. The evolution of my wife's connection with this man from mere digital curiosity to an undeniable emotional affair was both subtle and seismic in its impact. As days turned into weeks, their exchanges deepened, moving from the surface-level banter of new acquaintances to the intimate sharing of personal dreams, fears, and desires. It was this progression, witnessed in snippets of conversations overheard and glimpses of messages caught by accident, that signaled a profound shift in the nature of their relationship. What once could have been dismissed as a digital friendship was now unmistakably more. The hours she spent locked away with her phone, The late-night whispers and laughter that drifted from the corner of our bedroom where she thought I couldn't hear, became tangible evidence of the emotional affair taking root. It was in these moments, shrouded in secrecy, that I felt the distance between us widen into a chasm. The acknowledgement of their connection being more than platonic came as a visceral blow. It wasn't the specifics of what was shared or said that pained me the most, but the realization that she had sought and found solace in another. The depth of their bond, forged in the ether of the internet, was a clear testament to the erosion of our own. She had found in him a confidant, a source of emotional support and understanding that had once been my role. As this virtual affair took root, it not only altered the dynamic of our marriage but also my perception of trust and intimacy. The person I shared my life with was now sharing pieces of herself with someone else, leaving our shared history and future in jeopardy. The day I decided to confront my wife about her emotional affair was one of the hardest in my life. I had stewed in a mix of hurt, confusion, and disbelief for weeks, but the undeniable evidence and the weight of my broken heart couldn't be ignored any longer. As I voiced my concerns, hoping for some form of denial or reassurance, her reaction was not what I expected. She was defensive, insisting that what she shared with this man was nothing more than a friendship, albeit one that held a special connection. I tried to express how her relationship with him had transcended the bounds of a mere digital friendship, how it had deeply undermined the trust and intimacy of our own marriage. Yet, she seemed unable or unwilling to grasp the gravity of her actions, to see the emotional betrayal through my eyes. She argued that I was overreacting, that my feelings of betrayal were unfounded. It was a painful dialogue, one where every word exchanged seemed to widen the gap between us. My attempt to bridge the chasm only seemed to push her further away, solidifying my fears that she had emotionally vacated our marriage long before this conversation. I had hoped for understanding, perhaps an apology, something to mend the growing fissure in our relationship. But the chasm of denial and defensiveness that met me instead was a clear sign of how far apart we had drifted. Confronting her didn't bring the clarity or closure I had hoped for. Instead, it marked a turning point in our marriage from which there was no returning. The boundary between my wife's virtual world and our shared reality blurred and eventually disintegrated. The day I discovered she was planning to meet him in person was a gut punch of betrayal and disbelief. These clandestine meetings, shrouded in secrecy and lies about her whereabouts, were a stark revelation of the depth of her emotional entanglement with this man. The initial shock of uncovering their plans to meet outside the digital realm left me reeling, struggling to reconcile the woman I married with the person she had become. Each secret rendezvous she had with him felt like a deliberate erasure of the life we had built together. As their virtual affair took on a new dimension in the real world, the pain intensified, morphing into a constant companion that shadowed my days and haunted my nights. The realization that she had chosen to bring this man into our lives in such a tangible way, to invest time and emotions in someone other than me, was a clear sign of how far apart we had drifted. This transition from online to real-life interactions didn't just signify the physical manifestation of her betrayal but marked a point of no return for us. With each meeting, the fabric of our marriage frayed further, rendering the emotional distance insurmountable. Witnessing the person I loved divide her life between me and someone else was a form of agony I could have never anticipated, a stark reminder of the fragility of trust and the painful consequences when it shattered. Navigating through the debris of my wife's infidelity was a journey marred by disbelief, heartache, and a profound sense of loss. The revelation of her cheating was a cataclysmic event that shattered the semblance of trust and unity we once shared. Each day became a struggle to face the reality of our fractured bond, to grapple with the why and the how of it all. The emotional toll was immense, leaving me to question not only the fidelity of my partner but also the very foundation of our marriage. The initial weeks were the hardest. I was engulfed in a maelstrom of emotions, anger, sorrow, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. The home we built together, once a sanctuary of love and warmth, now felt cold and alien, imbued with the ghost of her deception. Sleepless nights were spent replaying our conversations, searching for missed signs or red flags I had naively overlooked. Engulfed in the aftermath, I found myself at a crossroads, torn between the desire to salvage what was left of our relationship and the need to protect my own well-being. The journey through the aftermath was not just about coming to terms with her actions but also confronting the vulnerabilities within myself and our marriage. It was a period of introspection, of facing uncomfortable truths and acknowledging my own part in the disintegration of our bond. The path to healing was slow and often painful, requiring a resilience I wasn't sure I possessed. Yet, through the turmoil, I began to piece together a new sense of self, one forged from the ashes of betrayal but resilient enough to envisage a future where trust and love could once again flourish. Reflecting on our marriage before the affair casts a revealing light on the unnoticed erosion that had silently taken place between us. It's a stark realization now, how the vibrancy and connection that once defined us gradually dimmed, replaced by the routine and complacency that crept in unnoticed. We stopped prioritizing each other, letting the chaos of daily life overshadow the need for intimacy and shared experiences that once bound us closely together. In those days, communication faltered, Our conversations became logistical, focused more on schedules and responsibilities than on dreams, fears, and passions. We lived side by side, yet the emotional distance between us expanded with each passing day. It's painful to acknowledge, but we had become strangers under the same roof, disconnected from the very essence that once made our partnership feel like a sanctuary against the world. The laughter and ease that marked our early years were replaced by silence and a growing indifference. We stopped asking questions, stopped being curious about each other. It was easier to bury ourselves in work, in hobbies, in anything that didn't force us to confront the widening gap between us. We neglected the small gestures of love, the daily affirmations of our commitment to each other, allowing the foundation of our marriage to weaken under the weight of unspoken resentments and missed opportunities for reconnection. This reflection is not about assigning blame but understanding the gradual drift that left us vulnerable to the forces that eventually pulled us apart. It's a realization of the importance of nurturing a relationship, of never taking the bond for granted, and the tragic consequences when we fail to do so. Choosing to walk away from the life we had built together was an agonizing decision, one that I wrestled with night after night. It felt like admitting defeat, acknowledging that the love we once shared had been irrevocably damaged by betrayal and secrecy. The realization that our marriage could not survive the depths of this emotional infidelity was a bitter pill to swallow. Each memory, each shared dream that we had woven together over the years, now felt tainted by the shadow of her actions. The decision wasn't made in haste. It came from a place of profound sorrow and the sobering acknowledgement that to preserve my own sense of self-worth, I needed to sever the ties that bound us. It was about recognizing that my happiness and mental well-being were paramount, that clinging to the remnants of what once was would only prolong the anguish. This choice, as heart-wrenching as it was, marked the beginning of a journey towards healing and self-discovery. Letting go meant accepting that the future I had envisioned with my wife was no longer possible, that the path forward would be one I walked alone. It was a step into the unknown, a leap of faith in myself and in the hope that there was more to my story than this chapter of pain and betrayal. It was a declaration that I deserved to find happiness again, even if that meant stepping away from the woman I once thought was my forever. Forgiving her was a journey that took more out of me than I could have ever imagined. It was not about condoning her actions or forgetting the pain that her betrayal had inflicted upon our lives. Instead, it was about releasing the burden of bitterness that had taken residence in my heart, a necessary step to reclaim my peace and pave the way for healing. The path to forgiveness was lined with moments of profound sadness and reflection, but it was also illuminated by the understanding that holding on to resentment would only anchor me to the past and impede my progress into a brighter future. Choosing to forgive was a declaration of my resilience, an acknowledgement that despite the depth of hurt, I possessed the strength to move beyond the agony. It was a personal milestone, marking the moment I chose to embrace the lessons this ordeal had taught me about love, trust, and the importance of self-compassion. This act of forgiveness did not erase the memories, nor did it diminish the significance of our shared history. Rather, it allowed me to accept the reality of our ending and fostered a sense of hope for what lay ahead. As I navigated through the aftermath of our broken marriage, I discovered a newfound sense of self-awareness and a commitment to pursuing happiness on my own terms. Forgiving her was the key that unlocked the door to a new beginning, one where I could finally step away from the shadow of our past and venture into the promise of tomorrow with a lighter heart. Navigating through the aftermath of my wife's emotional affair, I've come to see the dual-edged nature of online relationships in our modern world. The internet, a tool designed to connect us, can also dangerously disconnect us from the ones we love. It's a lesson learned in the hardest way possible, highlighting the fine line between innocent digital friendships and the potential for something far more damaging. This experience has taught me the importance of communication and boundaries within a marriage to safeguard against the invisible threats posed by virtual connections. It's a reminder that we must tread carefully in the digital landscape, mindful of the impact these online interactions can have on our real-life relationships. The allure of understanding and empathy from strangers online can be tempting, but it's crucial to remember the value of nurturing the connections we have offline, with the people who truly matter.